Andrew had always been drawn to people who intrigued him, and no one fascinated him more than Sam. She had a quiet grace about her, the kind of presence that pulled you in without trying. He met her at a mutual friend's dinner party, and from the moment they started talking, Andrew felt an instant connection. She laughed at his jokes. Her eyes sparkled when she talked about her favorite books, and for a moment, he thought he had found something real. But Sam was different. As much as Andrew tried to get closer, it felt like she was always a few steps ahead, slipping through his fingers just when he thought he had her. They started dating, and every time he tried to open up, share a vulnerable part of himself, Sam would retreat. She'd become distant, distracted, almost like she was a ghost of the girl he first met. When Andrew brought it up, she'd always say something like, "I just need some space," or "It's not you. I just don't know how to deal with emotions like this." He knew she had attachment issues, but Andrew thought that maybe, just maybe, his love could break through. He spent hours planning dates he thought would make her smile, writing her notes about how much she meant to him. But every time he reached out, Sam seemed to pull further away. It wasn't that she didn't care. He could feel the way she softened in those rare moments of vulnerability. She'd hold him tight, look into his eyes, and whisper that she loved him. But the very next day, she'd go cold again, as if she regretted ever letting him in. It was a painful cycle. She'd come close, open her heart just enough for him to see the love she was capable of, and then she'd back away. They'd spend a few beautiful days together, and then she'd disappear emotionally, not answering his calls or texts. It hurt Andrew, but he couldn't walk away. He loved her, even if it was tearing him apart to keep reaching out to someone who kept pulling away. Eventually, Andrew decided to give her the space she always asked for. He stopped chasing her, let her take the lead. For a few weeks, they barely talked. It was agony, but he figured she needed time to process things. Then, out of the blue, she showed up at his door one evening. Her eyes were red from crying, and she looked at him with a kind of raw honesty he hadn't seen before. "I love you, Andrew," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I do, but whenever I feel that love, it scares me. It feels too intense, like if I let you in completely, I'll lose myself." Andrew wanted to hold her, tell her that she didn't have to be afraid, that he wasn't going anywhere, but he knew better by now. He could see the fear behind her eyes, the way she was already starting to pull back even as she confessed her feelings. So, he just nodded, giving her the space to speak. "I wish I could be different," she said, her voice cracking. "But every time we get close, it feels like too much. I need you, but I also need to be free. I don't know how to reconcile that." Andrew took a deep breath, realizing the heartbreaking truth. No matter how much he loved her, he couldn't fix this for her. She had to work through her fears on her own. "I'll always care about you, Sam," he said gently. "But you have to decide what you really want. I can't keep doing this back and forth." Tears streamed down her face as she nodded. "I know. I'm sorry. I don't know how to stop pulling away." They stood in silence for a moment, the weight of everything unsaid hanging between them. Eventually, Sam turned to leave, but not before whispering, "I'll always love you, Andrew. I just don't know how to stay." And with that, she was gone again, leaving Andrew standing in the doorway, wondering if she would ever find the strength to come back and stay for good.